Are you talking to the police in Sweden? How much do they know?
لا تنتظري، تعالي التجئي إلى الدولة الإسلامية.
Listen, this Raqqa thing is fake. They fooled us. Yeah, these things happen.
Everything she's told me is true, I'm sure of it.
I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
Hello and welcome to Quick Hits, a podcast brought to you by Borealis Threat and Risk Consulting in Ottawa, Canada. I'm your host, Phil Gurski, and as I've been doing for the past couple of weeks, this is a review of an episode of the Netflix series Caliphate, a Swedish production about Islamic State and the possible terrorist attacks in Sweden. This is the last episode, as I promised you last week, episode number 8 of season number 1. Now, I don't know if there is a second season planned. I haven't seen anything online to do that. We'll see why there has to be a second season as I get to the end of my podcast. I've been commenting on how real the Swedish security service is in terms of their actions and their techniques, as well as how real the Islamic State is in terms of how they see the world and the things that they do and say. But here's a very quick summary of what happens in episode number 8. I've talked a lot about this supposed terrorist plot in Sweden. Well, it turns out there's actually 3 simultaneous terrorist plots to be carried out by 3 different people. The first is a bombing on an aircraft by an unknown person. I haven't seen this person so far in any other episode, who is being accommodated or facilitated by Miriam. She's the woman that works at the airport and is able to sort of smuggle plastic explosives through airport security. And a guy gets on a plane with a backpack. Looks like a Turkish Airlines because the overhead announcements are in Turkish. Flight going to London. The second attack is the 2 idiot brothers, the converts, who are going to carry out shooting at a subway station in Stockholm. And the third attack is, of course, Ibbe. This is our Egyptian friend, who is going to attack with a bomb. It ends up being a truck bomb that has been targeting an ecumenical meeting of different religious groups. This is all going to happen on the same day, and of course it's quite dramatic. And as the brothers enter, or about to enter the subway station shooting, they are shot dead by police. And as the guy tries to detonate the bomb on the plane going to London, he clicks on the detonator, nothing happens, and he's arrested by police, which leaves Ibbe. He thinks he detects surveillance, so he makes a run for it. He goes to a garage, parks the van inside, goes out to a woman in her apartment whom he kills, a real hero, and ends up shaving. I talked about shaving last time, how Islamist extremists shave body hair because they think this is their one-way ticket to heaven. Long story short, a small bomb does detonate and Ibbe gets away.
One brother has died. The condition of the other is unclear.
Thank you. Maristad 2, are you done?
Yes, Victoria Hall has been evacuated. No civilians in the area.
Understood.
Next, we hear more about Nadir. Nadir, of course, is the man that Fatima thinks is a traitor to the security service. Well, it turns out Nadir's a good guy, kind of. He tells Fatima, who's been arrested, by the way, she's been monitored by the police, and of course, she has been a rogue officer for some time. Nadir has her arrested. Nadir tells Fatima that Seppo knew about the plot all along and kept Fatima in the dark because she was non-trustworthy. I'll get back to that in a second. When the plots fail, of course, ISIS in Raqqa is watching TV, wondering when the glory is going to start, and they find out that it failed, that they were caught by Swedish police. And these ISIS wankers, they shake their heads in disappointment. They suspect the police found out, and they're convinced that somebody in Raqqa was the traitor. So Hussam's there, Hussam being Pervin's husband. He, of course, is nervous that they found out that Hussam's wife, Pervin, is the traitor, but they figure that Ahmed is the traitor. Ahmed's the guy that raped Pervin before she knifed him to death. They figure that since Ahmed has disappeared, no, he's in the well next door rotting away. That's where Pervin dumped him. They blame Ahmed for the attack. So they're completely wrong. They have no idea what's going on. And then in this bizarre scene, the ISIS guys say, let us pray to Allah that he will forgive us for failing in a terrorist attack. More on that later in a second as well.
Schools need to be refurbished over the next few years at a cost of over $2.
Fatima is still running rogue. She essentially goes to get Pervin out. She ends up on the border dealing with what looked to be either Turkish military or perhaps the Syrian Democratic Forces, i.e. the Kurds. She gets into Raqqa. Long story short, she gets Pervin and Hussam out. Unfortunately, Lisha, this is Suley's younger sister, who wasn't supposed to be there in the first place, she has some come to Muhammad moment at the very end, and she tells Omar, who's come to collect Hussam for his suicide mission, that in fact they're trying to escape. Omar shoots Pervin in the back, and he in turn is shot by the man who's helping Fatima get these people out. Lisha ends up staying. She won't go back to Sweden with them. They all pile into the car. Pervin is shot. They get to the checkpoint where the ISIS guys look at their passports, let them through, and unfortunately, Pervin dies. Pervin dies from her gunshot wound.
It doesn't work like that.
Well, you've done this before.
Yes, but...
You know the people in there. You know
It's
the
not
Kurds.
that easy. These things are very complicated, Kala. I can't just order anything.
You can try though, can't you?
Getting back to what's happening in Sweden, Ibbe, of course, is still at large, and he has now convinced Kerima to become a suicide bomber. Kerima, of course, being the one that tried to commit suicide, and she, of course, was rescued along with Suleyka, and they're back in Sweden. Ibbe is a real manipulator, and I'll get back to that in a second. So he gets Kerima to don a suicide vest, which is locked, so she can't take it off. She's ordered to go to a concert being held in Stockholm, at which a lot of young women, young girls will attend. And she's told to go to the stage, detonate her bomb, because Suley will detonate her bomb at the back as everyone runs to get out. And then Ibbe will come dressed as a healthcare worker as an emergency response, and he will detonate a third bomb. So it's sort of a triple suicide bomb. This, of course, is all horseshit because Suley is not part of this. Suley has reconciled with her family. She realizes Ibbe is a terrorist, and Ibbe has no intention of dying either. So the very last scene, this is the interesting part, is that Kerima has basically taken off her sweater. She shows the other girls that she has a suicide vest. They all run screaming. She's in the bathroom talking to Suley on her cell phone, and then you see a scene where Ibbe is dialing the number to detonate the suicide bomb. Episode ends. End of first season.
Bomb. You have to run. This is a bomb.
So very dramatic. Well done on the drama part. I think it was suspenseful, for sure. But as this podcast is trying to do, what is it about these particular episodes that is realistic? And what is a little bit of, shall we say, the producers taking license with what is probable or even possible? The whole Nadir thing has been making me wonder quite a bit. So, of course, Fatima thinks that Nadir is a traitor. She thinks she's gone over to the other side. Nadir tells her, no, I've actually turned Abu Jabril. He's the radicalizer. He's the imam that was causing all these young men to adopt this aberrant version of Islam. And Nadir claims that he turned him into a source 2 years ago, and that Fatima was not told because, as he said, we can't trust you. You blew an earlier operation. This is what's called need-to-know principle in security services. And in very sensitive operations or very sensitive collection programs, the numbers of people who are allowed to be aware of it is kept to a minimum. You have to have a need to know it in order to know it. This is accurate. I was certainly involved in many need to know operations in my time, both at CSE and at CSIS. The reasons why you do this, of course, is so that, the fewer people know about something, the fewer the chances that someone will spill the beans. You remember the old World War II saying, loose lips sink ships. So this is a verified intelligence service practice to try to ensure that operations are not compromised. Now, does it work out exactly how it did within Sapo? A little bit of liberty was taken by the producers, but nevertheless, pretty good, I would say. Next, I want to talk about sort of religious immaturity. So if you remember, Lisha, when she gets to Raqqa, she knows nothing about Islam. She doesn't know how to pray. She knows zero about the faith. And at the very end, she's the one who decides to stay. She warns Omar that Pervin and Hussam are trying to escape with Fatima. And she spouts all this religious language. You're going to hell. I want to stay. I am home. I have no family back in Sweden. I found this a little bit stretched. I do recognize that Lisha has gone through a lot of trauma in, Suley, her sister Suley, did not join her. They were rescued at the last minute. Kerima's not there. Alicia's all by herself. She barely survived a forced marriage to this 65-year-old old fart, a lech, a sexual pervert. So it's not completely out of the ordinary that she's had this amazingly rapid religious experience, which leads her to not want to go back to Sweden. I found it, like I said, a little bit, I don't know, hard to believe, but I'm not a psychological expert. I'm not a psychologist. So maybe that kind of trauma would lead to that kind of behavior. I'll leave it to others to comment on that. Back to Ibbe. Ibbe is the ultimate manipulator. I mean, this guy's a complete asshole. He claims he's going to carry out these attacks when in fact he has no intention of doing any of this kind of thing. He's the guy that would park the van and walk away. He's not wearing a suicide vest to go join Kerima, and as he lied Soleil at this girl's concert, he's the guy dialing the number. This guy's got he's got the courage of a toad. This man is not who he says he is. He's just a manipulative jerk who is trying to get other people dead. And I think this is very, very common. And this is similar to what happened back in Raqqa when Omar tells Hussam it's his turn to become a suicide bomber. These guys are watching TV of what's happening in Sweden. They're thousands of kilometers away. They have no intention of dying themselves, but they have no problem sending other people to die. They call themselves heroes. They call themselves the true believers. They call themselves the mujahideen, the holy warriors. These guys are just cowards at heart who have no problem watching other people die and in fact effecting those deaths, but have no intention of doing it otherwise. So I think that's quite accurate as well.
I don't want to die.
We need to get out of here.
How? Huh?
The other thing that's interesting is that Fatima at the very beginning tells Pervin that I'm not going to get you out of Raqqa until you tell me more about the plots. And it's Pervin that finds out through Hussam about the three plots. So the subway shooting, the bomb at the ecumenical event, and the bomb on the airplane. Fatima tells Pervin, I don't give a shit about you anymore. I'm not going to help you get out. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to deal with you until you find out more information. I did find this quite harsh. I'm not sure that is normal behavior when you're handling a human source, but I must be very careful here because I was never a source handler when I worked for CSIS. I did take part, as I mentioned before, in source debriefings, and I helped to train human sources, but I was never an actual source handler. So do people act that way at certain times? Is there a benefit to becoming very harsh with a source? I don't know. I found it immoral. I found it unfortunate and largely unnecessary. So I'm going to reserve judgment on that. And if somebody who's ever worked as a human source handler for a security service or law enforcement, I'd be curious what they thought on that. So that was episode 8. Overall, I did like the series. I found it flowed very well. There were multiple, obviously, as any good series is, multiple scenes, multiple actors, multiple actions, multiple plots. I thought the producers did a very good job of showing how a security service works with some liberties here and there. I found they portrayed Islamic State very accurately. These guys who claim themselves to be holy warriors and are just a bunch of jerks. They're a bunch of wankers. They're a bunch of cowards at the end of the day. So I would give my review of the Caliphate series I would give it 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was well done. I'm looking forward to a season 2. It seems to me that the producers did their homework. They must have had some kind of advisor who either worked for the security service, who has a heck of a lot of knowledge about the security service. They must have talked to somebody with some kind of terrorism background to understand what ISIS was doing. So kudos to the Swedish producers. Kudos to the actors. I found that the acting was very good for the most part. And as I said, I'm looking very forward to a season 2 at some point. So this draws to an end my review of the Netflix series Caliphate. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm curious as well, if you've watched this series, what you think of it. Please send me your feedback. You can reach me on email, borealisrisk@gmail.com, or on Twitter @borealissaves. You can also find me on LinkedIn and on Facebook. If you like this content, I invite you to go to my website, www.borealisthreatrisk.com. Hit the subscribe button, fill in your information, and you'll get a daily digest of podcasts such as this, longer and intelligent look at terrorism podcasts, my Today in Terrorism series, other perspectives, other media that I do, as well as other podcasts on which I've been invited, which seems to be happening more and more these days. So I'd love to hear your feedback, love to hear your ideas for further material. Please get in touch with me. I'll talk to you again very, very soon, I hope. Until then, stay safe.